Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Welcome to today's reading. Today we're going to be reading from the book of Psalms and we're reading Psalm chapter 22. So this psalm, I remember at the beginning of the book of Psalms, I told you guys that we have different kinds of psalms. We have thanksgiving psalms. We have psalms where David is saying, "Oh, these my enemies, please punish them." We have psalms where David is just actually prophesying about the Messiah and the things that are going to happen to Jesus, rather basically Jesus' life. This is one of the prophetic Psalms in the Bible, or rather in the book of Psalms. I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation. I'm going to be reading word for word, and then after that I'm going to give my summary and the lessons that I have picked up from this book. If you haven't already read the chapter, please pause this recording. Let us be obedient people. Let's pause the recording, read the chapter for yourself, understand what it's saying, then come back and listen to me reading it word for word, and then listen to the summary and the lessons that I have picked up from this chapter. If you're ready, let's do this. Psalm chapter 22. It says, for the choir director. I've already explained what that means. It means that this psalm was written to be given to the choir master, or rather the person who was leading the choir or the singing or the praises in the tabernacle. And it says, a psalm of David to be sung to the tune of Door of the Dawn. So this is not necessarily a song that we know, but the choir master must have known what song that is. And David was like, this psalm can be sung in this same tune of this song. Because remember, David was a psalmist. David was an instrument player. Yeah? David alikuwa creative, by the way, let me tell you. He was a creative man. All right, let's read it. It says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Is that a line that you've heard before? I think so. It's a line that we've had in the New Testament when Jesus was at the cross. And it was just like, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. Every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. As we are reading this chapter, please read it from the interpretation, rather from the thought that this is speaking about Jesus and Jesus praying, during that crucifixion period when he's praying. Remember when he prayed and even sweat blood when he's at the cross, the things that happened to him before the cross, just that period. So put that in your mind as we are reading this chapter. It says, yet you are holy, enthroned on praises of Israel. Our ancestors trusted in you and you rescued them. They cried out to you and they were saved. They trusted in you and were never disgraced. But I am a worm and not a man. Let me tell you guys, this line just hit me and it just made me laugh, because there are seasons you just feel like, hey God, kwani am I a worm? Because clearly you're listening to other people. And this is exactly how David is expressing it. He's saying, am I a worm? Because my ancestors trusted in you and they were never disgraced. My ancestors asked you to rescue them and you rescued them. So why are you not rescuing me? And isn't that how Jesus felt when he was going to the cross, and when he was praying, he was feeling like, yani you won't rescue me. Yani I will still go to the cross. And also I've seen a lot of people saying that, like in comments of people whose relationship are doing well, and people are just like, hey God, if I'm a spoon, so you at least let me meet my plate. Or if am I a what? Am I a worm? Literally just what the Bible is saying here. Am I a worm, not a man? It's basically saying, God, kwani mi unioni? He says, I am scorned and I am despised by all. Everyone who sees me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, is this the one who relies on the Lord? Let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him. Yet you brought me safely from my mother's womb and led me to trust you at my mother's breast. I was thrust into your arms at my birth. You have been my God from the moment I was born. Do not stay so far from me, for trouble is near, and no one else can help me. My enemies surround me like a herd of bulls. Fierce bulls of Bashan have hemmed me in. Like lions, they open their jaws against me, rolling and tearing into their prey. My life is poured out like water, and all of my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, melting within me. My strength has dried up like sun-baked clay. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth, as to say, I'm thirsty. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You have laid me in the dust and left me for the dead. Do you remember, guys, when Jesus was at the cross and he was so thirsty, someone had to give him water? Maybe this is what it means by my tongue has stuck to the roof of my mouth, like I am so thirsty. You have laid me in the dust and left me for the dead. My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. Does that sound familiar? I can count all of my bones. My enemies stare at me and gloat. They divide my garments amongst themselves and throw dice for my clothing. This is exactly what happened to Jesus's clothing. It was just divided amongst the soldiers. All right, oh Lord, do not stay far away. You are my strength. Come quickly to my aid. Save me from the sword and spare my precious life from these dogs. Snatch me from the lion's jaws and far from the horns of these wild oxen. I will proclaim your name to my brothers and sisters. I will praise among your assembled people. You see how that has switched? Just switched from, oh my God, I'm surrounded, to I will praise your name, which is a really good switch. Praise the Lord, all of you who fear him. Honor him, all you descendants of Jacob. Show him reverence, all you descendants of Israel. For he has not ignored or belittled the suffering of the needy. He has not turned his back on them, but he has listened to their cries for help. I will praise you in the great assembly. I will fulfill my vows in the presence of those who worship you. The poor will eat and be satisfied. All those who seek the Lord will praise him. Their hearts will rejoice with the everlasting joy. The whole earth will acknowledge the Lord and return to him. All the families of the nations will bow down before him, for royal power belongs to the Lord, and he rules over all the nations. Let the rich of the earth feast and worship, bow before him, all who are mortal, all whose lives will end as dust. Our children will also serve him. Future generations will hear about the wonders of the Lord. His righteous acts will be told to those that are not yet born. They will hear about everything that he has done. Oh, wow. There's a lot in this psalm that evokes the image of Jesus' suffering during crucifixion. And this is a prophetic psalm, as I'd mentioned. So let's start with verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me? These are words that we find when Jesus was at the cross, just before he died. He spoke these words, and we can find them in Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. Then verse 8, it says, is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him. In Matthew chapter 27, verse 43, when Jesus was on the cross, the onlookers said, he trusted God, so let the Lord rescue him now if he wants to rescue him. For he said, I am the Son of God. So basically, the onlookers are just like, see, you rely on the Lord, let the Lord rescue you. Then we see verse 14 says, my life is poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. This prophesied of how one of the soldiers would pierce Jesus' side with a spear, and immediately blood and water would just gush out. Then we have verse 16. My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs, and evil gangs close in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. This needs no explanation. It tells of how Jesus was crucified with nails on his hands and his feet. Then we have verse 18. It says, they divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing. This prophecy is fulfilled in John chapter 19, verse 23. It says that when the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they divided his clothes among the four of them, and they also took his robe, but it was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. So then this chapter takes a turn from verse 22 to verse 31, and it turns to praise, meaning that it ended in victory, which brings me to the lessons that I have learned from this chapter. So first, this is the lesson. There's no first, this is the lesson. So listen closely. It says, when you are living in God's purpose, suffering will come. Oh, suffering is guaranteed. Actually, suffering is promised. But God's track record show that suffering will not be in vain. Your suffering will not be in vain. That it will always end in victory. All right? Let me repeat that. When you're living in God's purpose, suffering will come. As a matter of fact, suffering is promised. But God's track record shows us that our suffering, my suffering, your hard times, will not be in vain. That it will always end in victory. Why? Because you're living in God's purpose. And God's purpose, God has no track record of being defeated. So it will end in victory. It doesn't matter what's happening in the middle. It will end in victory. If you need evidence of this, please look at the lives of Abraham, the lives of Jacob, the life of Joseph, Moses, Esther, David, and even Jesus himself. These are men who lived God's purposes. These are men who lived God's purpose. They suffered for sure, but it ended with them winning. And that is what I like about this psalm, that it ends with praise. It doesn't end with, Lord, I am dying, my life is ending. It ends with praise, which is proof to show that our suffering, so long as you're living God's purposes, your suffering will never be in vain, that it will end in victory. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate you listening today, and I'll see you tomorrow.